Few Christians ever stop to realize what actually happened on March 25th. Not the date on a calendar, not a line in a prayer book. What actually happened. On that day, something so immense took place that the very course of human history broke in two, a before and an after. A young woman in a small and simple house in the city of Nazareth received a message that would change the destiny of every soul ever born. Heaven touched earth, and the God who created the universe waited for a girl's answer. If you could have been standing in that room, if you could have seen what the angel Gabriel saw when he appeared before Mary, you would not have breathed, you would not have moved. Because what was about to unfold in the next few seconds was the hinge of all of history. The Son of God, eternal and uncreated, the Word by whom all things were made, was about to begin living in the womb of a young woman from a forgotten corner of the Roman Empire. God was not commanding, he was asking. That detail alone should stop you cold. The one who spoke galaxies into existence, who needs nothing, who lacks nothing, chose to wait. He sent a messenger, he made a request. And in that suspended moment, the entire created order held its breath. The Feast of the Annunciation on March 25th is one of the most profound dates on the entire Christian calendar.
Behold,
but most Catholics walk through it without feeling the weight of what it truly means. Not just as a memory of something beautiful that happened 2,000 years ago, but as a living call, a personal invitation, a moment that is still unfolding right now in every heart willing to say yes to God. Today, we are going to look at three offerings, three spiritual gestures that every Catholic can and should bring to Mary on this feast day. They are not complicated. They don't require a theology degree or a lifetime of perfect devotion. But they carry a spiritual depth that can open something real in your soul, something that routine prayer alone cannot reach. If you feel that your faith has grown cold, that your prayers sound hollow even to your own ears, that you've been going through the motions but something essential is missing, write right now in the comments, Mary, teach me to say yes.
Behold the handmaid of the Lord.
By commenting, you declare to heaven that your heart is open, that you are ready to receive what this feast was always meant to give you. Don't scroll past that. Do it now. Because what we're about to uncover goes far deeper than a devotional tip. This is about the moment God is still waiting for in your life, right now. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux was one of the greatest minds the Church ever produced. A doctor, a mystic, a man who spent his life inside the scriptures the way a diver spends his life inside the sea. And when he meditated on the Annunciation, he wrote something that has never left the Church's memory. He imagined the whole created order frozen in silence, not poetic silence, not the kind you feel on a quiet morning. He meant the silence of held breath, of every creature, every soul, every angel and patriarch and prophet, suspended in a single moment of absolute waiting. Think about who was in that silence. Adam and Eve, who had broken the world with a single act of disobedience. Noah, who had watched the rain fall for 40 days. Abraham, who had walked out of everything he knew because God told him to go. Moses, who had stood barefoot on holy ground. David, who had wept on the floor of his palace under the crushing weight of his own sin. Isaiah, who had written about a virgin who would conceive and who had died without seeing it. All of them waiting. Every soul who had ever lived and died in hope of the promise. Every righteous man and woman who had trusted in a redemption they could not yet see. They were all caught in that moment, hanging between the fall and the rescue, between the wound and the healing. The angel had delivered the message. Now everything depended on one answer. Bernard writes, that it was as if the whole universe leaned in, as if creation itself could not continue until Mary spoke. The weight of every human prayer ever offered, every tear ever cried in the dark, every desperate whisper from a soul that still believed God had not forgotten them, all of it rested on what this young woman would say next. And she was afraid. Don't rush past that. The Gospel of Luke says the angel's greeting troubled her. She was not performing courage. She was not acting out a pre-scripted role she'd been rehearsing her whole life. She was a young woman, alone, suddenly face to face with something beyond the edge of human experience. And she felt it. The fear was real. The uncertainty was real. And she said yes anyway. That detail matters more than most homilies will ever tell you. Because when God calls you, and He does call you, right now, in this season of your life, He rarely removes the fear first. He rarely waits until everything feels safe and clear and manageable. He shows up in the ordinary middle of your life, and He asks, and the whole of heaven waits. Behold the handmaid of the Lord, be it done unto me according to thy word. 11 words. That's all it took. 11 words from a young woman in an obscure town in a conquered country, and the eternal Son of God took flesh inside her. The Word who was with God in the beginning, the one through whom all things were made, the light that the darkness has never been able to extinguish, began to grow in a womb. The incarnation didn't begin at Bethlehem. It began here, in this room, in this moment. With these words. Think about what that means for a second. God did not descend into the world like a stone dropped from a great height, sudden, unstoppable, indifferent to what lay below. He came through a door that a human being had to open from the inside. He waited for a free act of love. He waited for a yes that no one could give but Mary. And when she gave it, everything changed. The ancient wound that had been bleeding since the Garden of Eden, the separation, the exile, the long darkness of a world cut off from its God, began, in that instant, to close. Padre Pio understood this better than almost anyone. He had a devotion to the Virgin Mary that was not sentimental. It was not the kind of Marian piety that hangs a picture on the wall and forgets about it. For Padre Pio, Mary was the surest path to Christ, not a detour, not a distraction, but the very road God Himself had chosen to walk when He entered the world. He used to say that after Jesus, Mary is the safest and most direct way to God, because Mary doesn't keep anything for herself. She never has. Every grace she carries, every prayer she intercedes for, every soul she draws close to her, she hands directly to her Son. She is not the destination, she is the door. And on the feast of the Annunciation, that door stands wide open. What strikes me most about this feast, and what I think gets lost in the rush of ordinary Catholic life, is the sheer vulnerability of God in this moment. The Creator, placing the fate of His entire plan of redemption in the hands of a creature, trusting her, choosing her, loving her enough to ask rather than command. And she said yes, not because she had no fear, not because she understood everything that was coming. She said yes because she trusted the one who was asking. That is the theological heart of this feast, and it is the question this day is asking you. Here is something the Church has always known, but that modern Catholic life has made very easy to forget. God still calls. Not just in Scripture, not just in the lives of the saints, not just in the stories we read about other people who had dramatic conversions and profound spiritual awakenings. He calls you, right now, in the middle of your actual life, with all its mess and noise and unresolved guilt and quiet desperation. He is asking. And something in you already knows what He's asking for. There's an area of your life where you've been holding back, a decision you've been postponing, a sin you've been returning to because the thought of letting it go feels like losing something you can't survive without, a wound you've been carrying so long it almost feels like part of your identity now. God is standing at the edge of all of that, not with judgment, not with a list of your failures. He is standing there the same way the angels stood before Mary, with a message and a question and a patience that has no bottom. The question is simple. Will you say yes? The first thing every Catholic can bring to Mary on this feast day is the one thing she herself brought to God. A yes. Not a perfect yes. Not a yes that has every answer already worked out. Not a yes that comes from a place of zero fear and total clarity. Mary's yes didn't look like that either, and she is the holiest human being who ever lived. Her yes came in the middle of confusion and fear and a situation that made no natural sense, and she gave it anyway. She planted her trust in God deeper than her own understanding, and she spoke. That is the offering. Think about what God has been asking from your heart, not in a vague general sense, but specifically right now. In this season of your life, there is something He has been placing in front of you, returning to in the quiet moments, pressing gently against the closed doors inside you. Maybe it's a return to confession after months or years of staying away, that particular weight you carry when you kneel at Mass and can't receive communion. You know what I'm talking about. The distance that has grown so familiar it almost feels normal. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding, a forgiveness you've been withholding from someone else or from yourself. Maybe it's a vocation you sense but haven't fully surrendered to. Maybe it's simply this, a deeper surrender to God's will in a situation you've been trying to control for so long your hands are tired from gripping it. Whatever it is, God is not asking you to solve it today. He is not asking you to have it all figured out before you respond. He is asking for exactly what He asked of Mary, a yes in the dark, a trust that goes further than your own understanding. Here is how you make this offering. Stop reading for a moment, or stop watching wherever you are right now, and go somewhere quiet. It doesn't have to be a church. Your car counts. Your bedroom with the door closed counts. Anywhere you can be still for 2 minutes. And say this, or something close to it in your own words. Lord, I don't have everything figured out. I'm afraid of what yes might cost me. But I trust you more than I trust my own fear. Here I am. Do with me what you will. That's it. That is the first offering. It is small enough to fit in a whisper, and it is large enough to change the rest of your life. Mary knows what that moment feels like. She lived it, and she will stand with you in it. Now, I want to tell you about something that has helped thousands of Catholics go deeper into this conversation with God through the intercession of Our Lady. It's called The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio. Miracles, Protection, and Divine Graces. This isn't a devotional pamphlet. It's a serious spiritual guide built around Padre Pio's own teachings on the Rosary, documented testimonies of miracles obtained through this prayer, practical instruction on how to pray it with real devotion instead of empty repetition, a complete 30-day guide and specific prayers for protection and healing. Padre Pio used to say that the Rosary is the weapon, not a comfort object, a weapon forged for the spiritual battles that most Catholics don't even realize they're in the middle of. If you've ever felt that your rosary has become mechanical, if you've been praying it for years but still feel like something essential is missing, this guide was written for exactly that moment in your spiritual life. It is a small investment in your soul. The link is pinned in the comments. Click it before this video ends. Because what we're about to do together, the 3 offerings this feast demands, will hit completely different if your prayer is alive, and that guide can help make it alive. Now, let's talk about what Mary is actually waiting for you to bring her today. The second offering is prayer, but not the kind of prayer most of us are actually doing. There is a version of Catholic prayer that is really just noise management, words said fast enough to feel like they count, rosaries prayed while half your mind is somewhere else, masses attended but not truly entered. You're physically present, but spiritually 1,000 miles away. The lips move, the soul stays on the couch. That is not what happened in Nazareth. Mary's heart was not divided. It was not distracted. When the angel appeared before her, she was the kind of woman whose interior life had been so thoroughly given over to God that when heaven spoke, she could actually hear it. That is the invitation of this feast. To pray the way Mary prayed, not perfectly. None of us will achieve that in this life, but intentionally, with a heart that is actually present, actually open, actually listening for something more than the echo of its own thoughts. There are two prayers that belong to this feast in a particular way. The first is the Angelus. The Angelus is one of the oldest prayers in the Church's daily rhythm, and it was written for exactly this moment, to stop 3 times a day and remember what happened in Nazareth. It begins, "The angel of the Lord declared unto Mary." Each time those words are prayed, the soul is pulled back to that room, that moment, that suspended breath before the yes. If you don't already pray the Angelus, today is the day to start. It takes less than 2 minutes, and those 2 minutes, offered 3 times a day with real attention, can do more for your interior life than an hour of distracted recitation. The second prayer that belongs to this feast is the Rosary. When you reach the first joyful mystery, the Annunciation, don't rush it. Stay there. Close your eyes if you can and put yourself in that room. The rough stone walls, the dry heat of a Galilean afternoon, the sudden stillness. A young woman at prayer who has no idea what is about to happen. Feel the weight of that silence. Then pray your intentions into it. Your family, the person you're most worried about right now, the situation that has been keeping you up at night. Lay all of it at Mary's feet in that mystery, and trust that she carries it directly to her Son. She has never once dropped what was placed in her hands, not ever. Pray with that confidence today, not because you feel it, but because the Church has 2,000 years of evidence that it is true. The third offering is the hardest one, not because it requires the most time, not because it demands some advanced level of holiness that only mystics and monks can reach. It's the hardest one because it asks for the thing we guard most fiercely: control. The third offering is an act of entrustment, a consecration, not just of your prayer life, not just of your Sunday mornings, but of your entire life. Everything you are and everything you carry. The future you've been trying to architect. The past you haven't been able to stop dragging behind you. The people you love so much that loving them has become its own kind of fear. All of it into Mary's hands. St. Louis de Montfort, one of the greatest Marian missionaries the Church has ever produced, spent his life teaching one truth above all others: that consecrating yourself to Mary is not a spiritual extra. It is not a devotional upgrade for Catholics who have already mastered the basics. It is the fastest, safest, most direct road to a total union with Jesus Christ. He wasn't speaking in metaphors. He meant it literally. He had seen it work in his own soul, in the thousands of people he preached to, in the lives of the saints who had walked this path before him. When you place your life in Mary's hands, she does not keep it. She has no interest in keeping it. She takes everything placed in her hands and brings it, without losing a single piece of it, directly to her Son. That is what she has always done. From the very moment she said yes in Nazareth, she became the one through whom God chose to reach the world, and she has been doing it ever since. Every grace, every conversion, every soul dragged back from the edge of despair by a prayer said to her in the dark, she carries it all straight to the heart of Christ. So here is the third offering. It doesn't need to be a long prayer. It doesn't need elaborate language. It needs to be real. Say this, or let it become your own words. Mary, my mother, I place my life in your hands. Everything I am, everything I'm afraid of, everything I love, take all of it and bring it to Jesus. I can't find my way alone. Lead me to him. That's it. Say it today. Say it again tomorrow. Say it until it stops feeling like a formula and starts feeling like the truest sentence you know how to speak. Because the peace you've been looking for, the real kind, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances being favorable or fears being resolved, that peace lives on the other side of that surrender. Mary knows the way there. She always has. March 25th is not just a feast day, it is a mirror. Every year, the Church places this date in front of us and asks the same question that the angel asked in Nazareth. Not to Mary this time, but to us. The same God who waited for her answer is waiting for yours. He has not grown impatient. He has not moved on. He is still standing at the edge of your life, holding out the same invitation he has always held, and the whole of heaven is still listening for what you'll say. Today, you have 3 offerings to make, 3 ways to answer the call of this feast with something more than passive attendance. The first is your yes, that simple, terrifying, life-changing act of trust, spoken into the specific place in your life where God has been knocking, not when you feel ready, not when the fear is gone, now, in the dark, with everything still unresolved. The second is your prayer, not the kind that runs on autopilot, but the kind that costs you something. The Angelus prayed with attention. The Rosary prayed with your full heart inside the Annunciation, laying your real burdens at Mary's feet and trusting that she carries them without losing a single one. The third is your surrender, the act of placing everything and your future, your fears, the people you love, the wounds you can't stop reopening, into the hands of a mother who has never once failed to bring what she carries straight to the heart of her son. These 3 offerings are not complicated. They are not reserved for the spiritually advanced. They are for you, right now, on this day, because the same truth that changed everything in a small house in Nazareth 2,000 years ago is still true this morning. God enters the world through human hearts that say yes. He has always worked this way. He will always work this way. Mary said yes, and the Savior came into the world. You say yes, and something in your life begins to change. Something that has been closed starts to open. Something that has been dead begins to stir. That is not a metaphor. That is the promise of this feast. So before this day ends, before March 25th closes and the calendar moves on, stop. Go somewhere quiet and make your 3 offerings. Your yes, your prayer, your surrender. Say it to her simply, the way a child speaks to a mother. She is listening, she has always been listening, and she will bring every word of it directly to him.